way to start your day.
I'm telling you, it's a wonderful thing.
It's really fascinating.
It is very fascinating.
The mysteries of nature. I'm well, ma'am. Thank you very much for having me.
Well, thank you for coming.
Really, really a pleasure. First time in the Situation Room.
Yes.
With my brother here, I've had enough interactions with him.
Yeah.
Happy to see you in KTN.
Good to see you too.
Found a nice mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming, and also congratulations on your appointment in this commission, because it is the commission where every single eyeball of the country is at the moment. And in terms of what's going to happen, we're talking about litmus tests, and perhaps we are getting into a place where the piece of paper is about to be dipped into the liquid, and let's see if it's going to come out red or green. So before we get into the conversation this morning, we normally share a proverb from an African country. Dennis will tell you where we are today. We would love to get your interpretation of that proverb.
Okay.
So today's proverb is coming from a country that is referred to as the gifts of the Nile. And in this country, one fun fact is there was a period when cats were very sacred, and that if you accidentally killed a cat, that was punishable by death in ancient times. I'm referring to a country in northern Africa called Egypt. You've been to Egypt?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, beautiful country.
Yeah, to the pyramids.
A big percentage of the country is a desert. So in Egypt, they have very many proverbs like other African countries, but decided to dig up one. He who digs a pit for his brother will fall into it. What would be your interpretation? He who digs a pit for his brother will fall into it.
Thanks, Dennis. I think it's fairly straightforward. A pit is not meant for humans, is it? And least of all, a close relation. So if you're going to dig a pit with the intention of causing harm or hurting somebody so close to you, the very proximity between you and that person means that it will eventually have a ripple effect on you. So usimchongee mwenzako maovu yatakuja kupata wewe.
So from Egypt to Kenya, you realize for every African proverb, there's a Swahili version.
True.
Like all countries, like we all share something common. All these proverbs, just a little twist here, a little twist there, but they're all the same.
The Wahangers were up to something, that's for sure, across board, and they knew what they were up to. Well, okay, so since the new IEBC was put together, Dr. Mukhwana, this is the first time that we've had someone from that new composition to come in. So we're grateful that you were able to do that with us this morning, because there are, of course, many things that we want to look into as concerns. All right, so where's the country headed? For the longest time, and we say long time because, you know, in this dispensation, a day could be a very long time. Yeah. A month is a decade in comparison. And so for the longest
say that again.
Yeah, you thought you just came into the position, but it feels like you've been here for 10 years, hasn't it?
Yeah, indeed.
So here we are, and there are very many questions.
Yes, ma'am.
But let's start from the area of, you know, gearing up towards an election. And the by-elections are going to serve as a litmus test as to whether the IEBC is going to, as it's now currently constituted, is going to be able to carry out the duty. Call it crazy, but that's what folks have said. Do you think so?
Thank you, ma'am. If I'll definitely respond to that, and if you permit me, I want to thank you for the opportunity once again, specifically because the biggest challenge that we have in this country, in the information space, is sieving through. There's so much information flying across everywhere and coming up with what really is the correct position of anything. Practically everything has become anything, and anything has become everything.
Right.
So I want to thank you very much for the opportunity. Secondly, please permit me just to explain what we have done since we came in that will help us execute the roles that you are definitely interested in terms of clarification. Now, when we came in, we are about 53 days, thereabout, in the commission. We made it purposeful that we need to reorganize the structure of the commission in a way that will help us carry out our duties effectively. And the first thing we did is that with the direction and guidance of our chairperson, we created 6 thematic committees, which are supposed to be the drivers of execution of our work. Allow me to explain this because it will be useful in our conversation as we go forward.
Okay.
The first task that we did was to elect amongst ourselves a vice chairperson. That vice chairperson, we opted for the youngest of us all, Fahima Arafat Abdallah. Fahima is special in this context because, number one, she's the youngest of us all. She's 32.
Okay.
Number two, she comes from the least community in the country. She comes from Shela in Lamu. But most importantly, she represents the young people in whom we think that this future must be invested. And so that's the first major decision we made. By electing somebody who is younger, it is a pointer to where we are headed in terms of our focus, that our emphasis as a commission must be that the 70% of the Kenyans that we have who are youth must be at the center stage of what it is that we do. I keep telling young people, God has given me many years so far, and I'm grateful. But if all things remain constant, I'll depart to meet my Maker earlier than the 70% of the population in this country. So everything we do as a commission must have that as a clear premise on which we are going to work. So in my view, that is phenomenal. Number two, Fahima Arafat, therefore, as the vice chair, is in charge of the procurement directorate. Now, you're aware that procurement has been a troublesome area when we talk of IEBC. So again, to ensure that the thinking in terms of procurement will mark a clear departure from how those who have been there have worked, we brought in a new person, this young person, to be able to give us a refreshing approach to issues procurement, to issues handling of finances. So for us, that's big. Number two, we then looked at how shall we deal with the issue of elections, and we elected Commissioner Andere, who has a lot of experience. Commissioner Andere first worked with IBC before she went to the ORPP, where she has been, and now she's here. So in terms of electoral operations, that's a very, very knowledgeable mind that we have. So electoral operations under our sister Commissioner Andere. Then there's the whole issue of legal compliance. Every time we've had elections in this country, when you talk about the bills that are ailing IBC, now about 5.3 billion, all historical from 2013, they're not ours. Legal has been a thorn in the flesh of IBC. Practically everybody around in this country sues IBC. So we gave it to one of us who's very, very old hand in legal matters, and that is Mary Karen Sorobit, 30 years of legal practice. Then came the other area of human resource. Again, we believe that you cannot come out here and promise that you're going to deliver credible, fair, and transparent elections without taking into consideration what stuff are you using to have that to be delivered. And we gave it to one of us, Commissioner Nur Hassan, whose history, whose background has been practically in governance and administration, the public affairs. Over 45 years. There can be no more trusted person than that one in terms of experience. And then finally, we came to the issue of voter education. Now, if you read the exit report by the Carter Center after 2017 elections, they say that the biggest problem that IBC faced that time is that they did not communicate anything good they did, neither did they communicate anything bad they did. In other words, there was no communication.
Yeah.
And so we decided that we are going to put a lot more emphasis on being able to be heard, creating our own narrative so that the Kenyans can decide on whether we are doing a good job or not, because IBC has been seen with a lot of obscurity. So they chose to give it to me because I've had a chance to interact with Dennis here and many others. So they thought my face may appease you guys and be kind to us. So I was given the voter education, partnerships, stakeholder engagement, and communication. In the 50 or so days we've been in the office, we've held close to 20 stakeholder engagements. That shows how important we are considering us going out there and talking to the people, including the journalists. And so with that kind of thematic composition, that is how we intend now to execute our roles. Your question was?
Before I go to the question,
Yes,
so permit me to ask,
Yes,
because we are still in the stage of talking about composition.
Yes, please.
And we can't run away
Yes,
from this question that was clouding the swearing in of you and
Yes,
the rest of the other commissioners, because you've clearly given us profiles of why each commissioner then fits into their roles in terms of experience, in terms of age, and all these other things that you're looking at. Then the question is the whole issue around the names that were fronted and the politics around it. And you can't, you've said 5.3 billion legal. Everybody sues IEBC.
The bulk of it, yes. The bulk of it is legal.
Procurement is always at the center of all these things.
Yes.
But politics is also equally the same. I don't know how you're handling this, but what would you then say about those who argue that, look, a lot of these commissioners are representing the interests of certain individuals, either in government or in the political circles? Does that in any way influence how you're going then to carry on the affairs of the commission?
Not to our mind. Dennis, the biggest problem we have as a people is that we have become so cynical about practically everything. I've been in this country for a stretch. And in my life, I've interacted with many people, including yourself. I mean, your sister here could easily say, Dennis, you're disqualified to sit on this panel because you've met this guy before.
Because you know each other.
Because you know each other. So the fact that you have interviewed me before when you're in other place you've been, does that therefore render you incapable of discharging your duties here today by the very fact that you have interacted with me before? The reason why we were hounded to court is to be found in the grounds that were raised in the court papers against us. Some of us were said to have godfathers. None had godmothers, by the way. We all had godfathers.
They're not gender sensitive, eh?
They are not gender sensitive in the accusations. So all of us, somehow dotted lines were traced into a particular political leader. And the reason was they say that because we have worked with some of those politicians, because we have interacted with them, therefore will not be impartial. And then we ask, the fact that we have been in this country means we have interacted with other people. The Constitution does not bar you from ascending to any public job by the sheer fact that you've interacted with somebody who is in leadership somewhere else. That would be calamitous. And therefore, there is no way the fact that somebody thinks that we have interacted with so and so and therefore cannot be able to work, that cannot be a limitation at all. Look, Kenyans have to then make up their minds what they want. If the drafters of the Constitution intended that the people who will handle their IEBC will be people who have descended from somewhere and they have not interacted with any other person in this country, then the Constitution should have stated so. But better still, maybe they need to decide whether we should have the UN. That whenever we have elections, the only person who not have interacted with politicians or other leaders in this country, maybe is the UN. Or since we say India is a very good example in terms of elections, democracy, maybe we should pass a law and say that whenever we have elections, we invite citizens from India to come and sit in the IEBC. It is close to paranoia when it comes to IEBC. And we'll be explaining this as we go on. For example, when you talk about the cost of elections in this country. Because we don't trust each other, we have put layer after layer of regulations in the laws governing IEBC, such that even where digitalism would help, e-voting would help, we still have put another layer of manual because we think if you just send this thing to the server, there is somebody sitting in this server, and that server is something like a small black box. Somebody gets in, opens it, changes things and closes, and therefore we should also have a parallel system that is manual, where the votes have to be carried right from the polling center all the way to Bomas of Kenya. We are becoming paranoid about ourselves, and this is the big problem.
Can blame be laid at the foot of Kenyans for being paranoid? Well, let's take a look at chronology, shall we? And let's come all the way from 2007, where 2007 probably is the one that led into some of the most violence that we've seen after an election in Kenya. And then after that, there was a 2013 election for which there was contestation. And then there was a 2017 election for again there was contestation. And then you have the most historic Supreme Court judgment, which then put to bed an election not on whether somebody won or didn't win, but because there was a flawed process, right? Every year since 2007, there has been contestation on an election, and more than not, it has been on process. We came then to 2022, where after that election, it was the whole hot air debacle that then came from the judiciary. Now, the process issue lies at the very doorstep of the IEBC. We can't run away from that. It is a procedural commission. Whether you're looking at voter registration, whether you're looking at carrying out an election, whether you're looking at counting votes, whether you're looking at the transmission of votes, these are procedural. And because of the happenings of every election in the last 20 years, the public trust has reduced. So are Kenyans to be blamed for being paranoid if you look at this chronology since 2007?
Thank you very much, ma'am. That is a fantastic question. It actually dovetails into the question, why is there public mistrust in IEBC? And that is a question we were asked, most of us who were in the commission, we were asked during our vetting process, what will you do to reduce the gap of deficit, the deficit gap in the trust about IEBC? And that question, therefore, is very good. A straight answer to your question, Kenyans ought not to be blamed. It is understandable. But we must call it out for the negativity and the destructive atmosphere, the toxicity that is causing in the electoral system and in the political atmosphere and eventually the stability of our country. But let me explain a bit of chronology, the historiography behind this mistrust. Number one, if we look at the history of elections in this country, right from 1992, when we had the first multi-party elections in this country, and slightly before that, we had the Mlolongo elections. Mlolongo, I do not know whether you were an adult then, I was. In Mlolongo, it is said that those, all you need to do, if Dennis is the one who is candidate A, he would stand, and then those who vote for him will line up behind him, and so forth and so forth. Now, it turned out, so it is said, that those queues which were shortest, meaning they had the most few people, were declared the winners. And those who had the longer queues were declared losers. Now, fast forward. What perceptions do you think, therefore, Kenyans would have from those kind of results? Negative, fearful, distrustful. Fast forward, come 2007. And during that time, it was a charged election. And what happened? At the height of it, when the temperatures were high, the late Samuel Kivuitu, being the chair of the commission at that time, said, I do not know what they are cooking. At that time, the votes from Tharaka-Nithi were delaying to come in. And we are told that when they came in so massively that the winner was determined more on the Tharaka-Nithi vote.
Yeah.
And then he said, I do not know who won. Now, again, what perspectives and what perceptions do you expect Kenyans to get from that? Those who being fearful, distrustful, and not trusting the process. Fast forward in 2017, and the elections are annulled on grounds that they were not fair, transparent. So the first problem that is causing us to have a trust deficit in IEBC is our history of elections. Unfortunately, we have not done well to change that history. The perceptions persist. And therefore, IEBC of Isaac Hassan, IEBC of the late Chebukati, IEBC of Ethekon Edung Erastus cannot be the common denominator of this lack of trust. Because if the problem was Isaac Hassan, if the problem was Chebukati, why hasn't the trust shot up with the coming of the new commission? The common denominator, the first one, is the history of elections in this country and has to have been conducted. The second problem...
By whom, though? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
How elections have been conducted. By whom?
But by the political players and by the electoral commissions that have been there.
Okay. So there's
I gave the example of the late Samuel Kivuitu.
So there's a composite. There's
Yes.
a composite responsibility here
Yes,
between
yes,
political players and the body that conducts elections.
Correct.
So are you admitting that there's something that's in this water here that folks are drinking of that is creating this lack of trust in people?
Yes, there is. And I was going to come to the politicians and how they contribute to the problem that we have in IBC as a lacking deficit. The second problem is the electoral ecosystem in which IBC operates. The system of elections in this country is known as majoritarian, by which all a presidential candidate, and the problems are normally with presidential candidates. There is no problem with governors. No single election of a governor has been
No.
nullified.
No.
For MP, there's only one. So there's no problem in other elections presidential. So there's a problem with the electoral system because the electoral ecosystem is such that it is one which is based on majoritarian principle. By majoritarian, I mean that all that a presidential candidate needs is to clock the 50-mark threshold and then look just for one. And it does not matter that the other candidate got actually 48% of the votes in this country. All you need is 50 plus 1. What is the risk with that? That what a candidate will do is to look for a tribe that has the largest numbers. And you can't blame that candidate. If you're in that shoes, you will also do because all you want is to win.
Yeah.
So they get the biggest tribe. Then all this leader of this tribe needs to do is to go out and look for a leader of another tribe. Not voters. Look for a leader of another tribe and just get the one more. Once that is done, they're in. So once they're in, whether they choose to pay back to the 51 or to pay back to the 100% Kenyans is another issue. So the electoral ecosystem is predisposed to misuse and unhappiness of the result. Let's take the other one, which is proportionate member representation, where, for instance, you would have political parties going into the election as opposed to the individual candidates. A political party will then, for example, Party X, Dennis Party, would go in and say, for us, this is our manifesto, this is our gender mainstreaming, this is our marginalized mainstreaming. Should we win, these are the members that we propose to form government. Beforehand, the voters can pick out the party that is compliant with what it is they look for. That could even help us kill off this gender parity problem that we've been unable to attain. That also would help because whoever wins forms government in proportion to his or her win. So if you get 30% of the victory, you form 30% of government. If you win 40%, you form 40% of government. That way, the winner takes it all is diminished and the unhappiness is gone. Last year, we had 16,405 candidates registered for elections. Out of this, remember, 16,405, all having supporters who had invested emotionally, financially, and who knew things were going to change for them. Out of these, only 1,851. So even if you just take it that way literally, in terms of the unhappiness and in terms of the happiness, which one will be the prevalent atmosphere? Will they be those who won or those who lost? So the very issue of majoritarian ecosystem in politics is killing. Finally, number 3, the politicians. Our politicians ought to help IBC to overcome this trust problem. Because what happens is that our politicians on both divides engage in talk that is not helping to unite the population in this pursuit. You've heard where some politicians said, this one, we will top up. You've heard some politicians saying, this one, we have it. For a fellow who is in the village, that breaks their hope. Hii imeenda. Sasa kama imeenda, tutakuja kupiga kura kwa nini? Last election...
Why do you think they say that? Because before you're even sworn in, these conversations are already happening.
Precisely.
They were saying precisely that, you know what, ata kura zile, for example, rais atapata, tutaongeza.
Correct.
So they're talking about stuffing of ballots.
Precisely.
Why would they boldly and openly say those kind of things? And even after you've been sworn in, those conversations are still going on, that they are going to steal the election, and they're going to do this by doing what? Increasing the number of votes that are coming into the preferred presidential candidate.
Dennis, if that question came a few years ago when I was in the field of media analysis...
You know, because you're talking about politicians, and I'm wondering, the boldness to say certain things, for that villager that you're referring to, they will tend then to feel there's something these people know. Because the last election, there was a conversation about hustlers versus dynasties. Then there were people of the system. And what then that meant is the people of the system have the system in place. So they've already, wamekoroga kila kitu, they know from point A to point Z to the servers that this is what's going to happen. And whether you like it or not, this is what's going to happen. So that's where a lot of people are coming from. And the distrust that you're talking about is, we are seeing these politicians and you're saying you need them to help you. But they are doing the opposite.
Thank you. I know you're a fair guy, so it'll be fair to me that I don't get into the field of political analysis. But I'll tell you, because now here as a commissioner of IBC, I'm here to speak about what it is that is the perspective of IBC. And with the permission of the chairperson of the commission, who is the official spokesperson of the organization, I can say this. I do not know why they would say that, but I know what the reality is from the perspective of IEBC. It is not practical, it is not possible for any politician to steal an election in this country. And at the right time, if you allow us, we'll come back here with our technical team to simulate how this election is conducted from the polling station all the way up to the so-called bombers. And that's why I come around with my elections manager, I come around with a communications manager, because these are the technical people whose voices have never been heard, and therefore Kenyans don't actually know that even though politicians may say that tutaongeza, well, they're in their field. Let them do what they know best. But for us as IBC, it is not possible to steal an election. Let me explain how. The KI decision ruled that the polling station, that one classroom, the one stream where you go in and cast your ballot, it is independent unit. Voting begins, continues, and ends at the polling station, nowhere else. Once your ballot is cast, in the evening, those ballots don't go anywhere until they're counted. They are tallied, and the total number is arrived at, in the presence of all agents, in the presence of the media. Once that is done, those results, wale wengine wako pale, waandishi wa habari kama ninyi, pigeni picha. You have a right, hamzuiliwi. Na mkizuiliwa tuambieni, piga picha. That then is scanned to the constituency, and that is then to go to the tally center is scanned directly. There is no interference between the polling center and the final destination of that ballot.
Are you speaking historically, or are you speaking about what is going to happen in the future in 2027?
You'll be surprised that we can speak what you are going to do. But with the benefit of having gone into the IBC today And when I sit with these professionals, there is nothing that happened to say, at least not in 2022, because we have gone into the 2022 history, that can say the elections were stolen. Far from it. And that is why I've just given the example that out of 290 members of National Assembly, how many petitions went to court and how many succeeded? I only know of one, Magarini, correct?
Yes.
Out of the 47 governors, how many petitions went to court? And how many succeeded? Tell me. Out of 1,465, thereabout, MCAs, how many went to court? And how many succeeded? So if out of the 6 elections, the success rate was 99 plus, why is this perception lingering? Out of the presidential tallying of results, the transmission was 99.8%. Nobody talks about that. So for me, and I keep saying that before I went to IEBC, I was on this other side, and I would make analysis about what it is that IEBC was to do right. When I went in, and that's why I come here freely, I ask you to ask me all the questions so that IEBC can also have a day in the court of public opinion to say what it is that it has done. But the chairperson has told us, we'll maintain an open door policy. Where we make mistakes, because we are all human beings, we'll readily admit and correct, because we are not humans. Thank you.
So allow me to ask a double-headed question here.
Double-edged one?
Double-headed.
Oh, not edged. Thank you.
No. So do you think that the outburst or the thought, which we've heard from a number of politicians, and not just one or two, there have been about 3 or 4 who've essentially said, Ata isipotosha tutajaza, right? Yes, that has been said by politicians.
Yes,
so
ma'am.
whichever way we want to take it, or it means as though the body that conducts elections then would be malleable to making this Jaza thing happen. You see what I'm saying? So that's one. Is it possible that that public sentiment would give rise to this thought that that would be a possibility, that it's possible for somebody to rig an election? The other head of this question then is that if you removed politicians and their ability to then discuss with the IEBC or meet or share with the IEBC in this manner, if you removed that element from this process, would we still have as much of a sticky situation as we currently do or have in the past?
What do you mean by if we remove the politicians from this?
The politicians play referee. The politicians have a hand. The politicians have a say in even the makeup of those who selected the IEBC. They did. They can call on the IEBC and say, no, we don't agree to this. We must insist on this or the other thing. If we remove the political tint from this procedure, would it make a difference? And said, look, allow us as the IEBC to truly be independent, because that's the first word. That's what I stands for, isn't it?
Thank you. Let me begin with the first question, that because of some of these remarks by politicians, the Tutajaza remarks, your question is, does it contribute to the negative perception about IEBC, if I got it right? And the answer, yes, to the villagers, our brothers and sisters who are in the rural side of this town. And by the way, let me be fair to them, not only them.
Even then here in the city?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I am in some WhatsApp groups where I have colleagues who are professors, PhD holders, masters, and I see fake news, patently fake news. It's not even a deep fake. It's an obvious fake being posted in that group. And guys who have really gone to school pick it and peddle it around, and they form narratives, and those narratives, before you know, they are trending. Now, a fellow who has average education in the village, a fellow who has average schooling in the slums, becomes just swayed. So most of these negative perceptions that actually nearly consume IEBC are without basis. Most of them. I'm not saying some are not. Most of them. And therefore, bring in the issue of AI. And it's a dangerous mix. It causes a crisis. So yes, some of the remarks by our politicians have the potential to continue discrediting the ability of IEBC to be seen as credible. Because again, credibility, trust is about perceptions. And if you're not in control of who creates these perceptions, then really you're a lame duck. So on our part, you're going out and pleading with the politicians that please help us. Do your thing, but be kind to IEBC. Do not make remarks or statements which can actually harm the credibility of the institution. Because it's not only IEBC. We have other Chapter 15 commissions, KHRCR, all others. The moment politicians tend to make remarks which appear to show the common man that this commission, we can deal with it, it dents the credibility of those institutions. So the answer is yes. But for us as a commission, we know that that is a risk, and what we are doing, we are coming out to engage politicians. Because again, politicians are the major consumers of our services. They are major stakeholders as well, just like the citizens are. So you cannot say that you cannot deal with politicians. Independent commissions also at some time become interdependent in the sense that you rely on this government agency to do work. For example, we rely on the National Police Service for security. We don't have a security team in IEBC like in other countries which takes care of the security. So yes, we are independent, that's no doubt, but in terms of operations, you become interdependent. We go to Parliament, Jailer Committee, which actually supervises in terms of what it is we are doing. And we need funding. We go to the Treasury. So it is not right to think or even contextualize and say that since we are independent, we need nobody else. That is not practical. However, in terms of our work, our true north are the citizens. Because as an independent commission, we are exercising delegated sovereignty. This delegated sovereignty under Article 1 is delegated to the executive, to the judiciary, and to the independent commissions and the county government. Your second question was, if we removed politicians from making IEBC, will that help? I'm not so sure they have a straight answer to that. But let's look at it this way. Who, under the Constitution, forms IEBC? As a Chapter 15 commission, we exercise the sovereignty of the citizens. In the appointment of IEBC, the law envisages a process that is public participatory. And that is why the IEBC commissioners go through you apply, your names are published, the public is invited to criticize, the public is invited to bring complaints. After that, you go to the stages of selection, from selection, and everything must be public. So in brief, the appointment of IEBC is in such a way that it ought to represent the spirit of the Constitution, which is we are independent and performing the delegated authority by the citizens. In such a way that at the end, the president receives recommendations, and it is on those recommendations that he then acts. If your question is, if we remove the politicians from appointing IEBC, would that help? I'm not sure. Because governance is in the hands of those who are in government. Whether you are talking of police, we're talking about judiciary, the judiciary, for example, who appoints judges?
The president.
The president. After a public participatory approach. So it is really a hybrid. The public is involved. The public can bring any complaints they have. They can actually stop some candidates from going forward. There are some candidates who faced a very rough time, if you remember, because somebody within the public had come and complained about IEBC. So if your question is whether we should remove politicians absolutely from the process of IEBC appointment, and if that would help, to be honest, that is not something I would have a clear mind on it, because that is a system that there is, not only for IEBC, but for other commissions as well. Thank you.
Let's look at the ghosts of the elections. We have to talk about the ghosts as we look into the future.
Yes.
And I want to address a couple of matters here
Yes.
before we go into the question of the by-elections. And it almost feels like we'll need some more time with you on this. The 2022 presidential election petition.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the issues that were raised then, that were the same issues that were raised in 2027, if not more.
Yes.
The grounds, we know the petitioners was Raila Odinga, Martha Karua, Azimio Umoja, One Kenya Alliance, and together with others. So the grounds they were challenging William Ruto's declared win. And these were the allegations. And I'm going to raise this so that I get an answer to how then you will be doing things differently. Yes. One, there was the issue of the interference of the IEBC servers. My question is hizi server ziko wapi? When we've had this opening of the server question for such a long time that at some point there was the password couldn't be found. The person who had the access to the server couldn't be found. Where are the IEBC? Where are the IEBC servers?
Yes,
One. Number
yes.
two, there was the issue of the discrepancy in tallying and verification.
Yes.
I remember IEBC had actually given Kenyans access to Forms 34, to Forms 34A. So from the polling station presidential results, people could go online and access and see the Forms 34A, then Form 34B, the constituency tallies, and then the Form 34C, which was the national tally, that were available online. But the question then arose that, yes, you have access to these forms, but the issue here and the challenge is accessibility doesn't necessarily mean interpretation, because we had an issue where a polling station X has 5,000 registered voters, but the number of people who voted on that day is 7,000. So you have 2,000 extra, but the registered are 5,000. You catch my drift?
Is that 2022 or 2017?
Sorry?
Was that
I'm raising 2017 and 2022. I'm
2017.
looking at the ghosts of where we're coming from with these issues. So discrepancy in tallying and verification. Then the third one is illegal involvement of foreigners in our technology.
Joseph.
Are we the ones who are handling our own technology? Do we have who are these foreigners going? Because in the spirit of transparency, we have to talk about these things. It was a mystery. There were people who came into the country. They were
With
from
election material.
Yeah, they were found at the airport.
Argentina.
And there was,
Jose Camargo.
Yeah.
yes.
Is he a real person?
There was the Camagos, And then there's the issue of the splitting of commissioners, that they came out disowned results and they're saying we are not agreeing with the chair because of A, B, C, and D. Again, speaks of interference and what happens, because the question at that point was, if people are voting, the tallies are coming in, why would commissioners sit to debate these numbers, agree to disagree? They're not the ones who are telling people this is how to vote or anything like that.
The numbers come in.
You're interpreting the figures that are coming in. So why would there be splits within the commission? So how is IEBC going to address this as a counter to what was previously raised in the Supreme Court?
Thanks, Dennis.
Yeah.
Just look at my watch. How much time do you have for this?
Let's go. Let's keep going.
Let's give you
Let's give you time.
Okay. I'll say this. When we began the conversation, I indicated that in future I would like you to allow me to come in with our technical leads.
And we will.
And this is, thank you. And this is one area that I would want us to reserve. I'll answer generally, but there is an area I want to reserve. So the next time we'll come actually with our elections operations director and one more official from that directorate. So much of what has been said about these things from the question you're asking represents what I have decried here as lack of the correct information coming out in the public. The issue of extra ballots in 22 never arose. Might have arisen in 2017 when the elections were annulled, but that I have not applied my mind very well to it. I have applied my mind to 2022, and I'm clear from the information we have, the commissioners, as commissioners, there was no issue of extra ballots. However, as I said, this is something I would like you to give me one more time. I'll bring my technical team and I'll sit here, just have enough mics for everyone. I'll sit here and let them just take Kenyans through one after the other. Because this is important for us to overcome this issue of trust deficit. The illegal involvement of foreigners in results. You know, when we went there, we also wanted to know, who is this Jose Camargo? Mm-hmm. And it turns out that the issue of Jose Camargo was played out of context. That one officer, election officer, and again the technical guy will come and episode, that one election officer at the polling center who was taking a picture of the result. You know, you need to take the picture and then send it.
Yes.
Placed it above, superimposed it on a wrapper, that wrapping as a seal. The person who had been involved in wrapping the ballot from the other side, that's part of the seal you need to put what is known as the seal, and you put the name of the person who was involved. So that was Jose Camargo. So this particular picture was sent to the results with the Jose Camargo here. And that became the clarion call for election theft. I was surprised that was the explanation. But as I've said, and this I give you my word, I'll bring the technical lead on this one. You can ask all the technical questions so that you satisfy Kenyans. It's not for you and for me, actually.
Okay.
It's for the Kenyans.
Okay.
So I hope that suffices.
Okay.
Let me talk about the split screen, the disagreement between commissioners. This is one area which the chairperson, the vice chair, and ourselves have told ourselves we have to work on. It is not fair to Kenyans that you have been given a job and on the day when you're supposed to be delivering, you come and say, Erastus, Edung Ethicon, made that decision alone. And then in one corner, there is Erastus, Edung Ethicon, and 2 of us there. And in the other corner, there is another one and 4 of us there. It is not fair at all to Kenyans. And the biggest problem that could have led to this, we were not there, but having studied the decision of the Supreme Court, 2013, 2017, and 2022. And by the way, the advisory that they just gave the other day on the issue of boundaries delimitation, the Supreme Court has picked out consistently governance and administrative infrastructure weaknesses in the way the commission is structured. The commission has a CEO as the accounting officer. In conventional parlance, where there is a CEO, the buck stops with the CEO. Then in the case of IBC, the act brings the commissioners who then become the commission. So if you look at it, there are actually 2 centers of power in the structure of IBC. And the Supreme Court has advised, including in this latest advisory, that there ought to be a legislative reform that will cure the infrastructural vulnerabilities of the commission, which is prone to disagreements among commissioners. For example, the chairperson is the sole returning officer for the presidential election. So does that give him a blanket mandate to run with that decision, with that job, without involving the rest of the commission? Because the law does not say that he owes it to all the other commissioners to sit down in the plenary and say, this is what has come out and this is the position. That is what the Chirera 4 are arguing, that the late Chebukati had made a decision, but they are not involved.
Is there merit in that argument?
Logically, yes, there is a merit. But legally, no. Because the law as framed gives the chairperson that status.
So, I'm sorry. So, when you look at that then, isn't that where the problem comes in? Because the law gives you carte blanche in terms of then what you can or cannot do. So if there was ever any kind of, if there was another side to this argument, you as an individual, knowing full well that this carte blanche status is in your hands, you, where humanity, where an individualism now steps in, can actually make a decision as you would want.
Yes, we are all human, man.
Yeah.
We are all humans. And that is why there must be guardrails for such an important mandate as that of declaring the presidential win. Because as we have explained for the last 1 hour or so, there is not much a problem for governors and MPs and MCAs. The problem that we have been having in this country is
The presidential election.
So And this is what the Supreme Court has advised. It's not actually my advice here. It is the Supreme Court has said there are governance and infrastructural deficiencies in the way IBC is made up, and that has to be worked on.
Okay.
And remember, guys, that the biggest problem, whether you're talking about 2007, when the country burned, whether you're talking about 1992, when you had tribal clashes in Molo, Kuresoi, the problem is many times with the presidential election. And talking about the presidential elections and the issue of how politicians could help us improve the acceptability of the decision of IBC, look at how the country becomes useful whenever the leading presidential candidates unite. IBC becomes a smart guy. There's no problem with IBC. But every time there is an election and there is the presidential winner, the one who doesn't win the presidency disagrees and says, IEBC wameiba kura, vifaranga wa computer vimezaliwa, and so forth. Implying that in IBC there is a place where there's a hatchery where you put eggs and then they hatch and there are farangas that come out of it, and these farangas are the elected people. And the common man believes faranga vya computer. But soon after that, when these leading politicians agree that Kenya should come first and they work together, they bring coalitions by whatever name, IBC has no problem. And so the ecosystem of our politics is a boiler room. Is a matter of life and death. If only politicians would give us the kind of peace that the Ghanaian presidential candidates give their people, where they shake hands and say yes. In the last elections, there was a dispute in about 3. They repeated. And the loser shook hands with the winner and said, you got it, I'll have my second chance. If only our politicians will favor us with that attitude. They accept having lost. Where there is a doubt, it is repeated. And the winner takes his win, the loser accepts there'll be a second time. That will also help us have stability and peace after elections. And IBC will be a smart guy. Hata laumiwa wakati huo, hana kidonda.
Okay. 24 by-elections coming up.
Yes.
IEBC is ready?
We are.
You have your budgets?
Yes, we have. We asked for 57 billion. We were given 50, spread over the 3 years.
Oh, it's impressive. You need to tell the rest of the country what to do to ask for when their money is due.
Yes, it is not, it can never be enough.
Yeah.
But look, the country has a very short fiscal headroom. We're still working on areas that we could get more because the 57 was after rationalizing, and therefore there are some areas that would need better help. For example, in voter education, the budget for voter education really went down. And yes, so in terms of by-elections,
that really does affect you directly, because we're looking at a great number of new registered voters coming in, and so therefore voter education. And if the budget's downsized, then that affects then what you essentially were made. Yes,
in terms of voter education, yes, we believe we could do better with more, particularly because if you look at the number of spoiled votes in the elections, it shows that we need more education out there. But most importantly also, education should be continuous. What has been happening in the past is that after elections, the budgets are slashed, and therefore there's no voter education. But the law says there should be continuous voter education. So yes, there is a bit of squeeze on voter education, but by and large, in terms of the by-elections that are coming, we are all ready. And as you must have noticed, we've already announced the day for continuous voter registration, 29th September. So the short answer, Dennis, is we are ready, and we'll do the elections.
We're going to hold on to that promise of coming back to explain a number of things. The process of these things then needs to make sense to a lot of Kenyans. If there's anything to dissuade or dissolve the public distrust, it's necessary. Unfortunately, you're working from a place whereby that has already been built up. So to work against this can't be easy, but it's necessary for it to be done. Kenyans want to give a chance. Kenyans need to give the chance, on transparency. Thank you so much for being here this morning, and we're looking forward to the next one. Hopefully it will not be too long from now.
Not at all. As I said, the chairperson has given us the mandate to keep this new commission and an open door policy.
Okay.
If you ask us to come back next week, you see, you didn't even give me the questions that you're going to field.
Because you would have been prepared. It should come from,
So
sure place.
that is how open door we are. So if you, in fact, I would urge that next week or any other week when your time allows, we'll come back. Please allow me to tag along our technical leads in terms of election operations. I could even also come with Commissioner Anderetu, who is in charge of election operations, so that you also ask questions, because I'm here in my capacity as in charge of voter education, partnership, stakeholder engagement. You guys are stakeholders and communication. But there are commissioners who are in charge of specific dockets. Anderetu commissioner will come here to talk about election operations. But what I want us to talk more is on the issue of election, particularly the issue of results transmission.
Absolutely. Transmission is one of the issues that got the 2017 election overturned.
Yes.
It's necessary for us to look at why do we have to do this whole fiasco going to Bomas? Why do we have to then be very, insistent on some issues where we've already declared, according to the minor Kiai decision, that it was going to be declared at the polling station? Why do we have to do the rest?
Correct.
Those are questions that we have to ask.
And there is one more. On the cost drivers. Kenyans are unhappy that the elections are too expensive. But nobody bothers to dig deeper and find out what are the cost drivers. In 1992, when we had the first multi-party elections, we had 6,000 registration centers. 6,000. Today, at least as at 2022, last election, we had 46,000 plus polling stations, What does that mean? Each polling station has a minimum of 10 staff.
So that's 10 times 46,000.
Yes, on payroll. Add 2 security officers. Add a driver on standby. In total, at that election, we had over 510,000 employees paid.
No wonder it's expensive.
Yes.
We'll look into the details of that as well.
Thank you.
It's 10 minutes past 9, but we want to thank you for staying on longer and necessary for us to have this conversation. We'll dig in a lot more. Dr. Lutalala Mkwana is a commissioner of the IEBC, has been with us this morning. And we're looking forward to more conversations with you. Asante Sana for being here. And we look forward to more. Good morning. It's 10 past 9.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This is The Situation